I tested Joshua Weissman's 1 hour meal prep, and guess what? It took me 4 hours.
Bombastic side eye.
Josh Weissman is a super popular food YouTuber with over 9 million subscribers and almost 2 billion video views. His 1 hour meal prep is one of the most popular videos on his channel with over 6 million views. In this video, he shows how he makes 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches, and 7 dinners, all healthy and all under 1 hour. The video has mixed comments. This would take me at least a full day to accomplish because it would include getting groceries and figuring out workarounds for not having any equipment besides pots and pans. However, you inspire me to try it. The reason why it's simple is because some of us don't have a saute machine, I think they mean a sous vide, or a machine that sucks all the air out of a bag, and we sometimes don't have a functional blender. Fantastic points, unknown user. I have some workarounds for these issues, which we will definitely discuss a little bit later in the video. I really want to see an actual hour-long video where you do this in real time, no cuts, no voiceover. I feel like for the average person, this would be several hours. I want to see how long it's really going to take me, and was chopping prep included in that hour? Because planning, shopping, prep need to be factored in. Exactly, physics fan. From Josh's video, we assumed that it was the cooking part only that took an hour. What about all of the shopping and the prepping and the cleaning up? Well, I can tell you how long it took me to do everything, about 4 hours. So what makes me qualified to test a 1 hour meal prep done by a chef? I read into Josh's background, and while he does have experience working in restaurants, I do not. However, neither of us is classically trained or educated as a chef, and I've been a home cook for 23 years now. I've also written a cookbook, and I've made videos here on YouTube focused around cooking for over 6 years. So if an experienced home cook like me can't get this meal prep done in an hour, is it really realistic for the average person? We are going to be rating these recipes in 4 different areas. First is speed. So how long does each part of the meal prepping process take? Next is ease. Is this meal prep relatively easy and accessible for the average home cook? Third, we're also going to be rating it on taste, because even if this meal prep is easy and fast, it still needs to taste good. And finally, cost. How much does it cost to purchase these ingredients for a week's worth of meals? So first, I had to grab my groceries I needed from the store. I headed over to Josh's website and printed out the recipes. I'll link that down below. Then I made a list of everything I didn't have on hand, and I headed to the store. I wanted to go to a local grocery store, Hy-Vee, to grab my groceries. The list called for salmon, and I wanted to make sure that I got fresh and good quality fish. I picked up some bell peppers, some fresh basil, some eggs, fresh lemons, chicken breast, pork tenderloin, ground turkey, and I had the butcher skin some salmon fillets for me, which was super convenient. However, I also wanted to calculate just exactly how much it would be if you wanted to buy these ingredients for yourself, so I priced the entire list at Walmart. This is excluding basic spices, condiments, and oil, and the total for all of these ingredients came to $99.08. So if you're figuring 3 meals per day for 7 days, that's $4.72 per meal, which honestly isn't bad for a week's worth of homemade high quality meals for one person. Once I got home with the groceries, I moved on to the prep. All right, now I will say it took me like an hour to get pretty much everything prepped up and ready to go. So I've got my 2 food processors over here, some of my veggies that I shredded up and chopped up. My rice is ready to go in the rice cooker. I've got my pans set up, some eggs there that I'm gonna boil, and then I went ahead and kind of got all of my ingredients out so that they would be ready to go. And I'm putting them on these little sheet trays, which I'll link down below. These are super helpful. I've got a foil lined pan here for the poblano. I've got my Diet Coke, some lettuce that I'm gonna chop up for salad, all of my sauce, dressing / whatever ingredients. This was pre-washed broccoli, and I'm just gonna steam this in the microwave when it comes time to do it. And my veggies that I'm gonna chop up for the fajitas. You can see all of my veggies over here that I washed up. I tried to clean out the sink as best I could. There's still some cabbage in there from what I washed. All right, we've got our camera set up here. Light, ready, set, go. Anytime you're cooking multiple items, you always want to start with the things that are going to take the most time first. So I'm first putting together kind of a generic marinade for the chicken and the pork, and this is what the protein is going to cook in while it's in the sous vide. I'm going to season this with a little bit of this delicious honey from Manicora. I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Manicora Honey, also known as honey with superpowers. When I say honey, you might be picturing those bear-shaped bottles at the supermarket, but that's not what this is. Manicora Honey is single origin, rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey that you've ever had. It's supercharged with unique antioxidants and prebiotics and has 3 times more than your average honey. Manicora Honey supports immunity, aids digestion, boosts energy, and helps balance inflammation. If you followed my channel for a while, you know that I've worked in healthcare for the last 20 plus years, and I place a lot of value on peer-reviewed studies, so I don't just take these claims at face value. I did my own research, and it turns out that Manuka honey does have medicinal properties. The bioactive compounds of Manuka honey have exhibited anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial activities. I will link the peer-reviewed studies that I referenced in the description box below if you're interested in checking those out. It is a game changer. All you need is 1 to 3 teaspoons daily, so you can add it to your hot tea, your morning oatmeal, your salad dressing, or other recipes. So if you're looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine, this is your new healthy habit. Now it's easier than ever to try Manicora Honey with the starter kit. Just head to manicora.com/Chapin to get $25 off. The starter kit comes with Manuka honey, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, plus a guidebook. Now I love the jar and the squeeze bottle, but the extra pack of compostable honey sticks is perfect for whenever you're on the go. You can bring them when you're traveling or you need a quick snack, running errands, and they are the perfect energy boost if you are at the gym. That's manicora.com/Chapin to get $25 off your starter kit. This is the ultimate honey. Indulge and try some honey with superpowers from Manicora. So I'm gonna finish whisking up the marinade just to make sure that all of those ingredients are well combined. I've got my chicken and my pork in separate Ziploc bags, and so I'm just going to pour half in each. For the chicken, I'm seasoning it with some Italian seasoning, and then the pork, since this is gonna go with the fajita meals, I added a little bit of sriracha to that. So just kind of by making a base marinade recipe, this one's actually from my cookbook, you can kind of make 2 different flavors. So I'm going to preheat or set the sous vide water bath to 150 degrees. This is suitable for both chicken breast and pork tenderloin. And then I'm going to use the water displacement method or the air displacement method. You'll see basically if you have your sous vide pot going, you can just leave the bag, the top of the bag open. And when you add the bag to the water, it basically pushes all the air out of the bag. So you definitely don't need a fancy, vacuum air extractor. I actually do have one, but most of the time when I'm working on sous vide proteins, I don't use it because I don't like dragging it out of the cupboard. So I'm just going to put these down in the water bath. These need to cook for about 50 minutes, which is why I'm starting them early in the process. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on so that the water doesn't evaporate. Next, I'm going to move on to charring my poblano pepper. Josh said that this was optional, but I wanted to add it for the flavor to the green goddess dressing. And then I'm also adding my water to my rice in the rice cooker. I love this rice cooker. It is such a time saver in terms of not having to stand over the stove and check on rice all the time, and it cooks rice perfectly. I'm next going to start on the green goddess dressing. So I'm adding my basil to a food processor. Next, I'm going to add a cup of spinach. This is going to give it a nice green color. I'm adding a healthy amount of garlic, some pre-toasted almonds, and then also some nutritional yeast. And I'm just going to kind of blitz this in the food processor just to get all of the ingredients finely chopped. And then I'm streaming in some extra virgin olive oil. This is what's going to emulsify the dressing, and then as well as some lemon juice, which gives it a really nice flavor. I am adding a little bit of water because I found the dressing to be a little thick, and the recipe did indicate that you can add extra water. Obviously, you want to taste this for seasoning. I did add salt and pepper, and then I'm going to go ahead and set this off to the side while I'm waiting for the poblano to finish charring. So while the poblano's in the oven, I'm getting started on cutting up my peppers. So for these recipes, it called for 3 bell peppers, I think 2 red and 1 green, and then 1 onion sliced up. And I could have pre-chopped these ahead of time, but I believe when I watched his original video, he did it during the prep. And honestly, I'm pretty fast at chopping vegetables by now, so I just went ahead and did it. But I'm just slicing these really thinly, and then I'll go ahead and put them in a big skillet that I add olive oil to the bottom to. And you want to kind of cook these over like medium high heat, depending on how hot your stove gets. I really wanted these to kind of get soft and caramelized because that's how I like them. And so I did kind of cook them a little bit slowly. I added some salt and some pepper and just let those go while I start working on my turkey sausage. So I did go ahead and put together all of the spices first in a bowl just so it was quicker. I have my 2 pounds of ground turkey in this bowl here. I believe he called for 93.7, but I couldn't find that at my store, so I used 85.15, which worked out totally fine. After the seasoning is really well mixed into the turkey, I'm going to separate this into 8 pieces. So basically you have 4-ounce patties per serving. And I like to flatten these with wax paper. In the video, he used a burger press, which I don't even know if I have one of those, but I find it just as easy to use wax paper. It's a really great way to make sure that your patties are uniform. And then I had to cook these 3 at a time in my skillet. I decided to use a nonstick skillet just to make cleanup a little bit easier. And so I'm just going to continue to cook those as other things kind of keep going along in the meal prep. My poblano pepper is done, so I removed that from the broiler and I'm just putting it into a container with saran wrap over the top, and that will steam and allow the skin to come off super easily. So for the salad, he recommended 1 head of iceberg lettuce. I had half a head of iceberg lettuce and then a couple small heads of romaine in my refrigerator. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and use. I don't think it matters much what type of lettuce you use. You just want to use what you have on hand or what you like. My peppers are coming along really well. You do want to stir those every couple of minutes just to make sure that they're cooking evenly and none get burned on the bottom of the pan. If I had to guess, I would say these took about 15 minutes. And then I knew I wanted to use this pan to go ahead and sear off the chicken and the pork after it was done in the sous vide. So I'm just removing those peppers and putting them into a bowl. So for my hard-boiled eggs, I almost forgot to start these. I'm going to go ahead and put them in a pot, bring it to a boil, and then let them sit for 10 minutes. And then I'll pop them into this ice bath when they're done. So my pepper is done steaming at this point. The skin, you can see, comes off fairly easily. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking, wow, I really want to make chili rellenos, which is a lot of work, but they're really delicious. So maybe I'll make those within the next few weeks. But you just want to remove as much skin as possible and as much of the seeds as you can. And then I got my food processor back out with the green goddess dressing in it. Added the poblano. I would really recommend that if you're going to make this recipe. I think it does give it some really great flavor. And then I'm just adding that to a jar very messily so I can pop it in the fridge. Next up, I'm going to make the sauce for the fajita pork. So I can't verify this, but I'm assuming that Josh does not care for cilantro because he called for parsley in this particular recipe, but I love cilantro and I think it goes really great with fajitas. So I'm going to go ahead and use cilantro, but I put all of the ingredients in my little mini food processor and just added all of those, seasoned it to taste, and I'm just putting it in a little container in the fridge. Next, I'm going to start my broccoli, my steamed broccoli in the microwave. And then I'm going to put together my teriyaki sauce and I'll get that on to a boil. So I just want to say I did diverge from his recipe a little bit in that he wanted to put the salmon and the broccoli on skewers. And I just felt like that was way too fussy for a 1-hour meal prep. So I'm just going to cook my salmon fillets in the air fryer and brush them with the teriyaki sauce and steam the broccoli on the side, and everything's going to be just fine. So I'm going to trim up my salmon, and then I did go ahead and rinse this off and pat it dry just so it would get a nice cook in the air fryer. I am going to cook this for about 10 to 12 minutes, just because I don't want it to overcook, especially when you're going to be reheating salmon. You don't want it to overcook and then you're going to have to reheat it. So I brought the teriyaki sauce ingredients to a boil. This is delicious. Highly recommend this recipe. And then I added some cornstarch slurry. At this point, I'm a little nervous because I'm at 49 minutes and I still have quite a few things to do, including fighting with these hard-boiled eggs. Oh my gosh, I have never had such a hard batch of eggs to peel. That took me over 6 minutes. Okay, so next I'm going to move on to the slaw, and I pre-shredded this cabbage before. There's absolutely no way I could have got this all done in an hour if I would have chopped everything during the prep. So I'm seasoning the cabbage with some lime juice, some olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I'm just going to toss this up along with some cilantro and some green onion. I decided to add the cilantro as an addition that he didn't call for. But slaw like this is a great thing to prep ahead of time because it typically holds up really well in the fridge, especially for meal prep. Next, I'm going to add some of that Manucora honey because I felt like it needed a little bit of sweetness. And look, I'm already over time. I'm already over my hour and I still have so much to do. Okay, so I'm taking the slaw out of the bowl and putting it into a container. One of the things that I noticed when he did his prep was that he put cold and hot things, like cold things and things that had to be reheated in the same container. Please don't do that. Please put them in separate containers. You'll see that I'm going to do that just for photo purposes, but if you're doing this in real life, keep it separate because you're obviously not going to heat up your cabbage slaw. So I wanted to put together one sandwich just for a photo and to kind of show you guys what it looked like. So I toasted up a couple pieces of wheat bread. I'm putting on the turkey sausage patty and the hard-boiled egg. I probably wouldn't do this in real life. I would like fry the egg in a skillet so that it would cover the sandwich better. But anyway, I added it there and that's what the sandwich looks like. We'll talk about this in a little bit when we debrief. The salmon was about half done at this point, so I brushed some of the teriyaki sauce on. All right, well, that was something. 1 hour, 1 minute and almost 44 seconds. Let me show you where we're at. I would say we're like 97% of the way done. Okay, so salmon is done. That's just resting in there. I did brush it with the teriyaki. Rice is done. I just have to give this a fluff. Turkey sausage patties are done. These actually turned out very delicious, so recommend that recipe. The chicken and the pork is still in the sous vide. And here's the thing with the sous vide. Even if you put hot water in here, which I did, which was around 125, 130 degrees, it still takes a long time for this to come up to 150 degrees. So I would say this didn't come up to the correct temperature until like maybe 35 minutes. It took a lot longer than I thought it was gonna take. So I'm gonna leave this in here for a little bit longer because I wanna make sure that it's cooked uniformly through. This is a mess. I was just like throwing things in here as I was going. My lettuce is still soaking. I didn't get that washed. The slaw is done. These eggs turned out to be a disaster. No fault of anyone's really. Sometimes you just get a batch that's super hard to peel. And then I've got my peppers here. So those are done. Broccoli's done, but I haven't seasoned it yet. So at this point, the proteins were done in the sous vide. So I took them out, patted them dry, and you don't necessarily have to sear them off. I like to because I feel like it gives a nice crust to the outside. So I'm just using the pan that I used for the peppers, and I seared up both the pork and the chicken breasts, and then those were done. So I want to loop back around to some of the comments on this video addressing kitchen equipment. I think it is true that many home cooks, even experienced ones, don't have a sous vide. In this case, you could bake or air fry the chicken and the pork, although it might not be as tender, or you could also consider using an outdoor gas grill. One thing I want to mention is that the use of sous vide for the proteins in this prep is something that I really liked about it, and I think it definitely lends to better tasting meat. So if you're interested in getting started with sous vide cooking, you can actually grab one on Amazon for around $100. I'll link one down below. You don't need one of those fancy tubs for the water bath. You can use a big stock pot. You also don't need a vacuum sealer. You can use a Ziploc bag and the water air displacement method that I showed you earlier in the video. So let's go back to our ratings. The first one we talked about is speed. This 1 hour meal prep was almost able to be done in an hour. All in all, it took me about an hour to make my list and shop for the groceries, another hour to prep the ingredients, about an hour and 20 minutes to make the food, and 40 minutes to clean up for a total of 4 hours. I know that Josh didn't factor in all of the other steps into the 1 hour time frame, but I just want to be transparent with you about how long the whole process took me. If you're a beginner home cook, I would estimate that this might take you 2 hours rather than an hour and 20 minutes. And so for speed, I'm giving this meal prep 3 out of 5 stars. The next one is ease. Is this meal prep easy and accessible for the average home cook? This is a tough one. So even myself as an experienced home cook, I felt this prep was a bit complex. The flip side is that pretty much everything was made from scratch, even the dressings and the turkey sausage. So if that's a value to you, it might be worth it. But if I were to create this for the busy working person, I would suggest buying pre-made turkey breakfast sausage and good quality salad dressing. I might also suggest buying pre-bagged lettuce and pre-washed broccoli. It might cost you a bit more, but you're gonna be saving some time. And so for ease, I'm giving this prep 2 out of 5 stars. Third is taste. So I've tasted all of the components of these meals, even reheated, and I have to say everything is really delicious. One of the most important parts of meal prep for me is variety. And this meal prep has it. So using the sous vide for the chicken and the pork creates really tender meat that reheats well in the microwave. And for the salmon, I would suggest undercooking that a bit since you are going to be reheating it. But this, Josh, this is where we need to talk. In no meal prep scenario should a chef recommend that people pre-dress an iceberg lettuce salad. Absolutely not. Don't do that. Please don't do that. The only greens that you should really look at pre-dressing and putting in the fridge would be like a kale or something sturdy like that. I would recommend putting this dressing into individual dressing containers or putting them in a jar and taking out individual portions. Do not pre-dress your salad when you're using iceberg lettuce or even romaine. We also have to talk about pre-making the breakfast sandwiches. I would never toast bread, put sausage and a hard-boiled egg on it, and put it in the fridge to heat up later. I don't recommend that at all. I would recommend freshly toasting your bread each morning and then reheating your sausage and adding that along with the hard-boiled egg. So because of my cooking experience, I knew not to do this for these 2 items. However, a novice cook who's just watching this meal prep video might take his advice and follow the exact directions, which would really kind of yield an inferior product. However, I'm still giving taste a 4 out of 5 because, like I said, everything turned out great. Finally, cost. For me, the cost gets a 5 out of 5 stars. For really high quality meals, this is a great deal for a week's worth of food. So if we take all of those scores and put them together, overall, that's a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think this prep had some really delicious, high quality meals and great methods of cooking. And I will definitely be making some of these recipes again, including the turkey sausage. If you want to watch more meal prep, I just posted a summer meal prep that doesn't heat up your kitchen. So you can click here and watch that next.